Was there a time when you were observing the defendant when it appeared to you he was having a nightmare?
Yes.
And what do you remember about that incident?
I remember I was laying there the night before. I told him about it the next day, but I was laying there and I was reading my book and I heard him shout in his sleep before he woke himself up.
And what did he shout that you heard?
He said, "Die, die, die, motherfucker."
And you're quoting as best you remember?
Yes.
All right. And so did you ever have a discussion with the defendant about this nightmare that you heard him have, or these words he said?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and so if you know, about how long after that happened did you bring it up to him?
I brought it up to him the next day.
Okay, and what did you say to him about it?
I pretty much told him, I asked him about the situation about that he was locked up about, and I told him that he was talking in his sleep or yelling about some stuff in his sleep, and he was like, "What did I say?" And I pretty much told him what he said, and he's like, "Yeah, are you serious?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you said it." So I asked him a question. I'm like, "Did you do it?" Like, what, you know what I'm saying? "I think you did it." And we went from there.
And so what did the defendant respond when you said, "I think you did it," based on the nightmare? What did he say?
I told him to look me in my eyes and tell me that you didn't do it. And he jumped down from the bed and he looked me in my eyes and he said, "I did it." He said, "That's the reason I have the nightmares. I'm unable to sleep at night because I think about it all the time."
Was there a discussion at some point where the defendant said to you, "Is it that obvious?"
Yes, he did.
And so when did that come up?
Objection, leading. The very definition of leading.
Rephrase your question.
When, if ever, did the defendant say to you, "Is it that obvious"?
Objection. Same the exact same question.
That's taught in some law schools that's not a leading question. Others, like the one I attended, say it is. So it's not firmly settled, but I do think in the final analysis it tends to suggest an answer, so the objection is sustained.
In the discussion that you had where he looked you in the eye and said he did it, what else did he say, meaning the defendant?
Well, after we had talked and I told him, I basically knew he had did it, because I've been around killers. I know killers, like, pretty much, and he seems like a killer. I pretty much asked him, like, how did you do it? What happened?
Judge, I'm going to object here.
He has no way of knowing who is a killer and who isn't,
Right.
other than where he has personal knowledge,
That was opinion.
such as something he would have observed with his own senses. And then there's people who might make their statement based upon the hearsay that we talk about all the time, and that's not even been stated here. So he's making a judgment just based upon no basis at all, really, in fact, that would ever be considered admissible in a court. So please disregard that entire statement. Any question? Thank you.
So when you asked the defendant, how did he do it? What was said next? What did the defendant tell you?
Well, he spoke indirectly. Starting off, he wasn't pretty much trying to say everything that he did. I felt like he was held back, but he said that, well, if you gotta know a person, you gotta learn a person, you gotta be able to know, where they live, how they move when they leave, what they drive, and then he told me, one way of knowing when a person is going to be a certain area is GPS tracking, and he told me Amazon sold GPS tracking that you can put on people's car.
Did he use a phrase to describe the circumstances of his case?
What do you mean?
Did he at some point were you aware of a nickname that some people had given the defendant?
Yes.
And at some point, what nickname did you hear people address the defendant with occasionally?
A lot of times people would say Houdini or Zach Houdini, or just telling me about who my cellie was.
And did they? And was this a nickname that you did you understand why this nickname was given to the defendant?
Yes, I did.
And why was it?
Objection.
What's the relevance?
What
of
on
this
earth is the
nickname?
basis?
Because of what the defendant's reaction is to the nickname. So my offer of proof is when the defendant
Wait,
was
no, Judge.
Well,
I-
no,
I-
he's talking.
No, but I
He's
think.
talking.
Okay.
when the defendant was confronted with this nickname, he, according to the
Well,
witness, there was a
well-
reaction that is relevant.
Judge, I think that we had, in fact, the court instructed us to not go into all of this
Well,
arguing about evidence in front of the
yeah.
jury.
I think the last question was started with a why as a word. Why? Pardon me?
When the defendant was confronted with this nickname.
Why don't you start with a new question?
When the defendant was called Houdini by individuals, how did the defendant react?
He never denied it. He just would laugh it off, or just go on about his day.
And did the defendant talk about why people were calling him Houdini and describe, what that was about to you?
Yes, he said they called him Houdini because of his case, basically because he made a body disappear, they say, and everybody called him Houdini because of it.
And what can you say about how he was acting when he described that to you? Was he sad, regretful, just neutral? Was he proud? Describe his reaction as he had that discussion with you.
I think he was kind of like proud, but not really showing it. Like he kind of smiled it off. I mean, in jail, like you when you're around people, you got to have like this kind of name for yourself. I don't know. Everybody fighting the same battle in there, so everybody fighting different cases, and he kind of like his case is big, and because of it, everybody know him. So he kind of like wear that jacket a little bit. He doesn't admit it to everybody, but he does wear the jacket, in my opinion.
Okay. And what, if anything, did the defendant tell you about the circumstances on how he committed the crime? So you've already talked about, he said it took a lot of work, you got to follow the person's patterns, trackers from Amazon, you said all that. So what did he tell you ultimately? Were any of the circumstances he told you about how he did anything?
Yeah, he ultimately pretty much just told me that.
Well, I don't want to hear testimony. He pretty much just told
Okay,
me.
well
I'm not scolding you. I'm just telling you. You can quote exactly what was said,
Correct.
but we don't want your
pretty much.
conclusion pretty much told. Okay?
Okay.
And Judge, a witness is not going to be able to exactly quote. We're not computers, so he's going to say, here's what I believe I was told, right?
Well, I understand. Your point is legitimate.
Okay, so-
However, that's a flashing warning sign when someone states he pretty much said thus and so. You may be able to access the information you seek with a different question, but we're 9 days into this trial.
Yeah.
We don't want to ignore flashing warning signs.
Okay. So what did the defendant tell you about how he committed the case that he's charged with, and what the circumstances were?
He said that he had seen this person, and he said he stabbed him, and he blacked out. He said he stabbed him, and I just blacked out. And he said he eventually wrapped the body up in garbage bags and got rid of the trash. He threw the trash out.
Okay.
And I asked him, what did he mean by that? And I said, what, like dumpster or trash? And he said, once it's gone, it's gone.
What if anything, did the defendant say about whether after killing this person? Well, all right. So based on what you've said, putting in trash bags, it won't be found. Did you ask him any follow-up questions about things like how he moved the body?
Yes.
Okay. And what did the defendant tell you about how he moved the body of this person?
Well, I asked him, like, cause I'm like, you did this by yourself, pretty much. Well, you did this by yourself, and he said yes. He said he took him on his own. He didn't have his help with his brothers because you guys said that his brothers was involved with this. He said he did not have any help. He did it all by himself. And I'm looking at him like, okay, don't look, I don't know if he was telling me the truth or not because he was not a big guy, but he said, you should have seen me before I came in here. He was like, I was real cut, I was healthy, I was strong. When I first came in here, everybody was calling me Superman. So I'm like, oh.
And did he say, other than his own strength, did he say any other reason why he felt like he'd been able to do it himself?
Other than strength and adrenaline, that's everything he said.
Now, did you ask him, what if anything came up about why he did this? Why would he end this person's life?
He said to get back at his kid's mother.
And what did he tell you any more about that?
Yeah, he said that he was angry with a bunch of different things, but he said she kind of bragged about this other guy and that she was happy. He didn't really want his kids around that.
Other than the details you've described so far, did he provide any other details to you about the offense or any other of the circumstances of this case, other than what you've said so far?
He didn't really speak much. He told me what he told me, but he did say, no body, no case. And that was where he left it at pretty much.
Now, when you were originally debriefed by the government, were you asked about whether you knew of any other crimes?
Yes.
Part of that? Okay. And that was back in 2022, correct?
Correct.
And did you bring this particular incident that you have told us you heard from the defendant, did you bring that up originally when you talked to authorities?
I thought about it, but I did not.
Okay, so can you describe to the jury why, if you had already been confessed to by the defendant, why, when you were debriefed in 2022, you didn't choose to share this with anybody, any authorities?
Initially, I didn't know if me being federal, that would be something that I could use, and then I also didn't want to deal with everything that came with it. Like
What do you mean by that?
Like being put out in the open, like over the news, all over the media, that comes with risk factors. That's a lot of stuff that I wasn't really know if I was ready to deal with. So,
best you remember, had you told anyone about what the defendant had told you up until just a few months ago?
No.
Okay. So, do you have an attorney in your case?
Yes, sir.
And who's the first person that you decided finally to share this information with? Who'd you tell first, hey, I know some facts about what Zachariah Anderson did?
My lawyer.
Okay. And did you, and what were your instructions to that person? So when you told them, did you ask that person, hey, tell somebody this, or what happened?
I talked to him about, because like I said before, he asked me, what all did I know at this time? Like, are you sure you don't know anything else? And I pondered about bringing that up again, and I brought it up to him. I was like, well, I do know something. And he said he was going to look into it, and he got back to me, and he told me you really should speak up about it.
And after hearing that from your lawyer, did you